back to sixes and sevens. There's no French edition because I've come to the realisation my mate's not coming back from France. I thought if I dress up French, he'd come back home. Round 7 done and dusted. How's me little mate over there in France?
Geez, it's good to see you again, brother.
Oh,
Had a good
mate.
day today. Explored a little bit of the south of France. Went up with the wife to a beautiful little village about half an hour away. But all day I was thinking about this podcast and getting back on this screen, my mate. But it's good to see. And what a weekend of footy. I got to watch every game. The good thing about being over here, you're actually more present to watch football because you got slower pace. I get to sit there in my own little time and watch every game with detail. And it was a game of standout halves, wasn't it, Toddy? Mitch Moses, Isaiah Qatar, and our man Nathan Cleary, which I wouldn't mind going into that interview because it's got plenty of traction after last week. But, yeah, what about the performances from those boys in particular, brother?
Yeah, we're going to touch on the football side of things in a minute. We want to chew the fat and talk about how it's been. Obviously, I know I don't live in Sydney, you don't live on the Gold Coast, but I've just come to the fact that I can't just jump on a plane and go see anymore. It's actually sad.
Don't do this to me, brother.
But I can chew the fat and talk shit on here with you, which is good. And we talk
miss you
about
too.
milestones, and you played plenty of milestones in your career. 50, 100, 150, 200, 250, 300. The list goes on for you, but we've cracked 5,000. We've cracked 5,000 followers on Instagram. So
Wee-hoo.
to our sixes and sevens footy nerds, that's massive. We've only been up and running a little bit, but if you count your milestones, you give yourselves a pat in the back. And we can't start today without going into our interview that we released last week. Last Friday, we released the interview of all interviews, but we've got a list of retired legends and current players to come. But the feedback and just what I got back, listening and back through it was amazing. Nathan Cleary, first of all, thank you to you. But it's just been we had a vision, and we've now executed that vision, and it was really special to listen to the views of what people are saying, to us listen back over it. Obviously, we've got some work to do with our skills of interviewing people, but first off, I thought it was a pretty good debut for the both of us.
Yeah, it was such good feedback too. I've had plenty of messages as you just said, but it was a special hour and a half, wasn't it? Obviously, I hope the viewers could experience what we got to experience sitting in front of Nathan, and we've had the luxury to interview a few players that are going to come out in the next month, progression over the next 6 months. But you know, we've been around the game for a long time, haven't we? We've met and played with plenty of superstars, but there was something special about sitting there with Nathan, and I'm glad that all the viewers that got to listen got to experience that energy we felt. You know, some of the stuff that he spoke about was mind blowing. My favourite thing, which I think any of the footy nerds that have listened to it, you know, I was talking about self-doubt. You know, I remember both of us spoke after to hear a guy that's played in 5 grand finals and won 4 comps in a row with a winning percentage that's out of this world to talk about experiencing self-doubt. Well, we just hope that not only for young players, but for high-end corporates, for high achievers in any field, that they can relate to that. Just even if you take one thing out, take that out, that one of the greats is battles with self-doubt, and he's given us a formula how to get back on track. And then just the other stuff, when he went into the Broncos grand final, that last 20 minutes is going to be in history forever, and we got to sit in front of him and hear from the horse's mouth. So, and what a good fella he is. I've known him for a while, but he's a champion. How humble is he, Toddy?
Yeah, he was very humble, and it was amazing to sit across from him and to listen to his stories. But I guess the feedback we're getting is that it's a cool concept, the way we're doing it, the way it's ran. And the best part of it is that our next 7 guests all dive into similar stuff but put it in their own words. We sort of try and ask them the same questions so we get the same answers but in different ways, and it's really cool. Obviously, we interviewed 3 retired players, one of them more so about leadership, but The two of the greats from Queensland and New South Wales, both number 6 for New South Wales and Queensland, retired players, and also in the coaches arena. Listen to them talk about what it was like back then, but the common denominator was, which we released yesterday on the Nathan clip, was that talent will get you so far. You have to be inquisitive and learn and be a footy nerd pretty much if you want to play 6 or 7. And you're starting to see that now. And we look back on our lives. We spoke about it after the thing. What we're like as young fellas and coming through, inquisitive and learning and wanting to know why the ball bounced and things like that. And it's good to see. And for our footy nerds, I know you follow us regularly on Instagram. Shoot some messages of who you'd like us to interview. I know Mitch is over in France, but I'm here, and I'm sure we can. The way of the world of a podcast, I'm sure I'd be able to sit with someone, and obviously Mitch can jump in on the TV screen. But away from the footy nerds sort of talk, who would you like to see us sort of interviewing on the same way we do it? So it'd be cool.
And also, too, footy nerds. I'm over here in Europe. There's rugby union players around. There's the great Sam Tompkins, one of the all-time greats of English Super League. Luke Keary's over here. So throw your thoughts out here. We can get connected with these type of guys. And, it'd be cool to hear what the footy nerds want. And obviously, we spoke too, Toddy, with the reboot stuff that's progressing for us as well over the next couple of years is sort of tapping into some interviews with all types of characters, dusted characters, reformed bad boys, some corporates, all people that have got themselves out of tricky situations, which is, it's exciting, isn't it, to be able to sit there and just listen. I'm not very good at listening, so it's actually a really good, it's a good skill to practice to be able to just take all the golden eggs out of these people. But we had a good little 3 weeks. Now, you know what, the more we're talking about it, bro, I'm just missing being around you.
Yeah, I know, that's the same, and that's the thing. I've had to come to the realisation that I can't jump on a plane anymore. I know I've got something in the pipeline at the moment that I won't release yet. That I'll probably be seeing you probably more earlier than I thought, which would be cool. Maybe get a game. Maybe get a game together. That'd be cool. But even just to see your face.
Talking about playing a game, Toddy. I went to the Catalans versus Salford on the weekend just to talk the footy nerds. I'm sure there's plenty of footy nerds that follow Super League. Or if they don't, it'd be nice even to keep them updated with some scores. I'm obviously over here watching plenty of games. But on the weekend, Catalans got up. I can't give specific scores. I've actually should have written it down, but it was a big score in their 30s to 4 or 6 points from Salford. Salford in a world of hurt. It's a worry over here, and the big thing I wanted to bring up, obviously for the Catalans having a good win, but I wanted to bring up the conversation around Volandis and stuff talking about buying the Super League. I think it's such a good decision and something that needs to be done. Salford on the weekend, they go into games over here sometimes struggling to pay their players. Yeah. Like, put that in perspective, I think we're pretty privileged in the NRL, where we, the paychecks are coming in pretty frequent. There's so much money in the game, it's only getting more. But over here, there's players playing for Salford that weren't promised their pay that weekend. And I think you played at Salford. You can maybe go into a bit more detail, but I think some clubs over here are really doing well. They've got private owners, but if the NRL can buy into what they're talking about, buying into, I'm not sure the exact share, but something to do with Super League, it's going to be so good for the game because there's so many good players over here. But as we know, with limited funds, you're not getting the perfect preparation week in, week out, are you? And it'd be sad to see the game die over here. That's for sure.
Well, that's for sure. And when I was at the great Salford Red Devils, I had Marwan Kukash as our owner, so I had no worries about getting paid.
Is that why you have the envelopes coming out of your every pocket?
Just picking them up from here, picking them up from there. But nah, it is. I think it's a great decision for the NRL. I've got my ideas around what would be cool for obviously development from our young players and development from their young players.
What's that, Toddy?
Oh, just like at the moment, so there's rules around you have to play a certain amount of NRL games or Queensland Cup game, New South Wales Cup games to actually qualify to go to the UK. And I'm not sure if that's to do with away from rugby league or if it's to do with the way of how it works. but you have to play a certain amount of games. So I thought if the NRL was to buy it, that if you've got players that are sort of not quite making first grade here, instead of going back to Queensland Cup, they can head over to the Super League for 4 or 5 weeks and practice their footy over there. Because we've seen the development, not so much the development, but the growth in Jackson Hastings when he went to left the NRL, went over the Super League, one man of steel. It's a different style of footy. We talk about Bevan French and Blake Green, Bevan French and Jai Field at the moment, same thing. Brodie Croft, players like that probably weren't established here yet, but go over there and actually find their feet. And then it gives them an opportunity to bounce between two. Not saying that they'll stay there, but they can go over there and learn their craft over in the next best competition, I believe.
And plus, too, like you said, it'd be great for some of the English players that don't get as we've played with a lot of them, there's some super players that are just as good as the reserve grade 20s players in the NRL, but they're not getting the same, because the money's not invested in the juniors, they're not getting the same professionalism from an early age. Even in the French system over here, there's some kids in France, that if they had the opportunity to go over younger and get the same treatment that NRL kids got, you'd see some pretty quality players. So it's a no-brainer from the NRL.
Yeah. Well, I guess before...
Maybe me and you can coach over here. You can bring your family over, south of France, tranquil.
I probably won't be allowed in the south of France, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think you're banned. I'm rock solid around here, bro. I'll back you up all day. There's locals at the bakery talk about, don't even know that I know you. Hey, that Todd Carney caused damage.
Please, wake up to yourself. We'll leave that there. We've talked enough shit for a Monday morning, or Sunday night for you over in France. Let's dive into the footy. And the first game I'm going to kick it off with was the Easter Monday game. West Tigers up against the Parramatta Eels. Parramatta Eels outright winners 38-22. And the return of that man you spoke about at the start, Mitchell Moses. And we caught up with a coffee with him a few weeks ago. But his return yesterday, obviously there was a lot of hype around this game, the Lockie Galvin situation, how the Tigers want to go. But the guy that stole the show, it was Lockie Galvin who? It was Mitchell Moses. Just stood and delivered 4 try assists, match-winning try assists, was in everything, 40-20, taking the ball on. You know, he looked like a young kid in a lolly store. He was that excited, yahooing and stuff, and it was refreshing to see because, like I said, when we had that coffee with him the other week, he spoke about the changes he was going to make on his game. And when I was watching this game yesterday, I just focused on Mitchell, and I seen some changes in him and the way he's playing.
Well, hats off to Mitch, how good he was. We've obviously had the luxury to sit down with him a couple of weeks ago. What a great fella, and I can't wait for the footy nerds to hear that interview. But I was just mesmerised by how good everyone else played around him. It wasn't just, I'll get to Mitch in a second, but just how important, like how influential his energy, just one player can change the kick chase, the speed of Josh Addo-Carr. Like Josh Addo-Carr was running quicker. He had an intercept there at one point, and back into the game he makes that break. Like he looked quicker, and it sounds weird to say, but the really good players that have influence, the confidence that they give in other players, they all get a spring in their step. And Dylan Brown played better. Their forwards ran harder because there was clarity in their organisation. You know, they're getting a voice that's strong and telling them what to do. But I love the way Mitch, he obviously came out with a 40-20. That kick to Simonson at the end there was obviously just great vision. But I love the width that he played with. You know, that pass to Tuolangi that he put over in the second half off a really wide pass, little overs ball when Tuolangi scored. But just, he had the try assist, but it was the moments in between that with the width of the pass. Like, they're not getting that when he's not there. And that opens up the fullback, it opens up the 6, and it opens up his back rows getting one-on-one on their opposite halfback, on their 3-man. He's isolating defenders all the time. And we speak about it all the time. He won an Origin series for New South Wales last year off the back of his kicking game. I don't care what anyone says. If he doesn't play, we don't win. And it was because of the length of his kicking game. And once again, as I said, the kick chase is more effective because he's putting the team in positive positions all the time. So, but I just loved how he played. Like you said, he was like a kid in a lolly store. when you're out for a few weeks, you become a better player, and me and you could vouch for that. Like being halves, I always played my best footy when I was out because there's a sense of like you get when especially when your team's losing. It sounds really bad to say, but you feel like Superman that you're the man that's going to come back and solve the problems. And as a half, we all think like that. You'd admit that too, Toddy, right? You go, oh, it's a challenge. It's a challenge, and you don't carry the weight that the team's carrying. So you're able to get out of the system of the losses and the heaviness, and you come in with this confidence, and that's what he did. He did everything that we thought he would do, but even more.
Well, he would have come in refreshed, and when sitting down talking to him, he was talking about he knew a date that he was coming back, what the game was going to be, but he spoke about he can sit back and watch what he could do different, what he could actually bring to the team, and it showed on the weekend. He just brought that composure. The subtlety changes I noticed in him was just his crossplay, how he actually moved across the field and continued to stay square after he dropped the ball off and fake little dummy here and there. His kicking game was as best I've seen it. It obviously because we haven't seen him this year, but even like from the back end of last year to now, it looks bigger. It looks like he's done a lot of work on his short kicking game. Was nice. Nice little depth kicks down near the try line. But as you said, the confidence that he gives to the other players, and you spoke about the freedom of Josh Adokar looking like he's running faster. It's actually he's just got more space because of the work that's being done on the inside. And it's not just Mitchell Moses' work, the way Dylan Brown played on the weekend. Hats off to him. He's had a tough 7 weeks, but he got his halves part in the back. And, for me more so, but for you, but the importance of having a steady head inside you, I can feel the frustration Dylan Brown would have had. And like I said, when I went to Cronulla, me and Wade were butting heads, and then Jeff Robson comes in. It gives you that freedom to play footy. And then players like Azai Yongi, he was unbelievable yesterday. Like, one, he'd done his job coming out of the backfield, but he was chiming into plays. He was the last pass a few times to tries. But just the confidence in all of them would grow. Obviously, there's a concern the points they still leaked, but it's a win and it's a tick in the right direction for the Parramatta Eels.
As you just said, it just gives everyone so much clarity. But I laughed before when you said it. It reiterates that Dylan Brown's a more comfortable player at 6, isn't it? And it just highlights the decision from Newcastle, which we'll get onto a little bit later, the struggling Knights. But yeah, Dylan Brown, I totally agree. When he's got a dominant half inside of him, he's a super player, and we saw that again on the weekend. And I'm happy for Parramatta because obviously Jason Riles took over, and it's been dark days, but there's some shining light there. They're only going to get better, and I can see them backing a couple of wins up now, especially with Mitch's confidence. He'll have his eye on Origin, and he's going to have the team on his back, so they might go on a little roll here, Parramatta.
Yeah, I think I'm with you too. I think it's a step in the right direction for them. The Tigers for me they thought it was going to come easy. Obviously, it was a big week from Lockie Galvin, given the news that he's going to be leaving. Then obviously the drama that caused. Lockie played for their feeder club on the weekend, or the West team on the weekend. They went down 22-10. He tried hard from all reports, but it'd be interesting to see where Benji goes. But on the Tigers, I thought it would have been a perfect time for Jerome Luai to take the game by the scruff of the neck. He wore the number 6 jumper. Adam Dewey wore the 7 jumper. And it seemed like Adam Dewey done a lot of the organising, where I thought Luai would continue to wear his number 7 jumper, which he has from the start of the year. I thought he just sort of played similar to he did in round 1. I don't know if that's the effect of having Lockie not there with him, but it just felt like he sort of waited for the game, and then in big moments he stepped up and put on 2 try assists off kicks. But yeah, for me the Tigers they sort of lost their heads in parts of the game, but at the end of the day the difference was Mitchell Moses.
Yeah, it was all Mitch. I agree with you with Jerome. It just reinforces again Jerome's more comfortable playing that running 6. We speak about it all the time, and he'd say that himself. So I like Dewey. I think Dewey does a great job, but this Galvin situation, without dragging on it, it's going to be an issue. They need him back in there. You see in the media now, it's getting nasty. There's bullying accusations, and we'll get into it a bit later, maybe about agendas within the game and Braith and Gus and Moses and Benji, all this stuff that's going on. It's there year in year out, but I feel for Galvin, man. I feel for Galvin and the Tigers because the Tigers need Galvin. They need him playing. You just reinforced it on the weekend, but you can't see it with the stuff that's going on. I don't think we'll see him again all year.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It's a decision for Benji and the club will have to make, and then obviously if it goes further and that he doesn't end up even at the Tigers for this year, the rest of this year. But for the Tigers, things were on the positive and on the up. But I just can't help think from the weekend that it's all fallen apart again for them.
You'd hope not, because like you said, they've been so good. But like there was half an opportunity there on the right edge late. I think it was who went down the right when Josh had that intercept. But there was half an opportunity. Like there was game on there, wasn't it?
Yeah. Final last pass. Josh Adokar takes the intercept
when they made half a break. Like they're in the fight, but as you said, like you just don't want them to lose their heads again and fall back into the old Tigers ways because there's so much potential there. But I just have to say it straight up. If Galvin doesn't play, I don't think they make the finals. Because as you said, Luai needs someone like that inside him, as good as he is and as much success as he's had. You know, they were humming along nicely, but and as we know as well, like it's similar to what we'll get out a bit after with Manly. When a few of these things happen, it's hard to suffocate these issues in the game. Like we've been in teams, you need everything. You need perfect, not close to perfect chemistry to make the finals. You need everyone on the same page. You need trust more than anything in the group, and all this stuff. It affects the team. So it's sad for the Tigers because it's the same old story. It's the same old story, but who knows, Toddy?
Yeah, it's a bit like the game of dominoes. If one falls out of line, it wrecks the whole system. So
nice.
I'm going to reverse it.
Dominoes.
What did you make of the sin bin, boys? The sin bin in the game.
Lion loves playing domino.
Oh, what did you make of the sin bins?
Oh, I thought the sin bins were fair. It is what it was. They got, like I said, both teams sort of lost their heads, and we know Truva plays with his heart on his sleeves, and he was in everything. There was a few bumps and scuffles here and there, but I think that was the excitement for Para. They hadn't sort of put it on teams as much as they did on the weekend, and the excitement of their captain being back, their leader, and they seen a win in sight, and they went for it. And I think both teams sort of showed their emotions, which is cool. I think in rugby league, I think it's important to still have that. It can't be just all rainbows and butterflies and patting each other on the back and saying get on with and having a laugh. I think it shows that how much it meant the win to both teams, and that's why when each team scored, there was emotions and everyone was in each other's face. Our first game on Thursday night for the start of the Easter long weekend was the Manly Seagulls at Four Pines Park again, up against the Dragons. The Dragons taking out the win here, 20-18. And it's probably in this game, I thought the Dragons in old days would have let this game slip. They just showed some defensive edge and that dogged stuff you talk about, and the rap you always give Flano. Yeah, the Dragons, they showed a bit of fight, and they held on to the win, and you got to give credit where credit's due. I thought the way Flanagan and Lachlan Ilias played, and Flanagan in his interview after the game was talking about, gave us sort of a dig to everyone that sort of talks about their halves combination. So well done to him.
He doesn't mind a little dig, little young Flano, does he? I like it. He's got a bit of.
Well, it's good. He's got that bit of
dogged. He's got a bit of dogged.
a bit of dogged, whatever you say it is. And,
like son.
Yeah, so it's, and obviously, like anything, when as you know, Mitch, if you read into things, you get sick of people's comments and remarks, and we're probably two dribblers that say it more so because that's our name, sixes and sevens. So we do speak about Kyle and Lachlan a little bit, but on the weekend I thought they come up trumps, and they've found themselves back in the top 8. So well done. Concerned for Manly. You spoke about it before, that when things don't go right in your club, and they showed that didn't affect them the first time around, but since then they've had 3 losses. Tommy Turbo out. They just seem, I don't know, they just seem like they're not grooving. They're not some uncharacteristic errors. Kawatu, Cherry the same. But while they were in the fight, they just couldn't get the job done.
Yeah, it's same old Manly. It's disappointing. Obviously, I was going to say to ask Gab, something doesn't get spoke about much about Manly. Like, from their glory days, the last 7 years, they haven't played many final series. And I'm not trying to be Mr. Negative. They've played 3 in 7 years. Without trying to be Mr. Negative about Manly, and we speak about their inconsistency, like, it's quite a poor record for the squad that they've had for a fair while. And it's the same old story again at the moment. I know it's a long season, but they've had a really good run to start the year. They've had all their home games. I know they got Turbo out again with some injuries, but the squad that they've got, like we were only talking about them a few weeks ago when they put cricket scores on a couple of teams to start the year, that this could be their year. And then the worry with Manly is they lose a couple of forwards and in a world of hurt. Bullimore's playing really good for them at the moment, but with a couple of injuries in the middle, and then when the momentum's not going for them, they've just got no resilience. It's hard to say, but they just don't have any resilience. And I only brought up the finals appearances because that sort of shows where the club is, where the club's DNA is at the moment. And I've got so much respect for Manly because in the glory days when we played against them, they were the hardest team I played for those period of 10 years. With the players that they had, and they were brutal. But sort of since a lot of those players have moved on, the last 6 or 7 years, as we just said, they're not competing in finals very often, and week to week they don't have any consistency.
So what do you put that down to? Is it the Turbo effect that he's injured? Does it fall on Cherry?
I was going to ask you because I've sat there and tried to work it out, and I think no doubt the Turbo thing. Your defense isn't Turbo. Your resilience in defense and ability to play consistent and win in tough situations is not to do with Turbo.
It has. I think it has effects on it. We've seen that when he comes in there, a different team in attack and a different team in defense. I don't know if it's from his communication at the back or just instills that confidence in the group. But it's an interesting one to talk about because we spoke about it the other week when the DC instance come out that he was leaving the club, how it went down, and then they rallied together, they get a win. But are we now seeing the knock-on effect of that? Is that the reasoning why they're losing, or is it just because they're inconsistent, or is that just Manly what we're seeing? We'll probably heap too much praise on them from their early performances, or are we looking at their roster and going, okay, they should be performing better?
I think looking at their roster and it's not unrealistic expectations like on the roster on paper, and we've seen them perform. So within games, like I know I 100% agree. Turbo, when Joey Johnson played for Newcastle, Mitch Moses now in that ilk for club footy doesn't play. We see two completely different sides. I totally agree that they got that influence, but you shouldn't be seeing this, swinging defensive efforts week to week. Even when Turbo's playing, when the momentum goes against Manly, they struggle. So I can't put my finger on it, but it's a real worry there because they've got a red hot squad. Like the forward pack that they have on paper, they're an Australian halfback. They've got Brooksy, who's one of the best club footy players. There's no excuses there. So it's a worry. It's a worry for Manly because I can't put my finger on what the issue is there week to week.
Yeah, it's a concern. That's something we can probably dive in and talk about a little bit later. But you have to give credit to the Dragons that like I said, they've scraped themselves back in the top 8. The big positive again was their star signings from the off season was Valentine Holmes, Clint Gutherson, Damien Cook. Their influence. The way Valentine Holmes is playing, it's the best I've seen him play. The way he's hitting the holes off Kyle, off Leilua, off Gutho. Like he looks fast. He looks strong. And it's the same thing. I guess once the Dragons sort of work out them sort of little things that sort of pop up in games and they erase them, the Dragons have become a force week in, week out, and they don't have that inconsistency.
Gutho's a freak, isn't he? Like, you spoke about the start of the game. I thought they could have been up by a couple more tries. Manly scrambled actually quite well that first half, but some of Gutho's, sleight of hand on the edges there. He's a super player. He sort of gets underestimated. Gets put in that category of like a competitor, and he's just a worker. But he's actually got silky touches, and some of he puts himself in great positions too. He's got great instincts. Sort of underestimated a bit, but as far as a week-to-week competitor, like consistently, he's one of the best over the last 10 years as a club footballer, as a leader, as a guy that's into every week, effort player. And as I said, comes up with some silky touches. But I agree with you. Valentine Holmes has been huge. They just got a bit more class this year. I'm going to go back to it. And that's why all the footy nerds, I think, give me a bit of shit about having a love affair with Flano. No connection with him, but I see potential. And I honestly think they can make the 8. Special mention, I thought Hopewadi was great for Manly as well. He was a shining light. They've had heaps of good Hopewadis come out of that pedigree, but he's a bit different to the other Hopewadis. Like, his body type, he's a bit more lean, a bit more evasive than the others. The others are more power athletes. The dad, obviously John Hopewadi, and then Will and everyone, they've always been bigger, powerful athletes, but he's very good, isn't he?
Yeah, he goes good, and he's obviously learned his craft, and it's been a difficult couple of weeks, but he's been their shining light. He does his job and gets through a lot of work. But as you know, when you play fullback, he'll learn on the run and he'll get better as he gets more game time there. I think for Manly that they'll be screaming for Turbo to get back, but it's been like that. It's been the constant conversation over the last few years. So it's an issue that they need to resolve or work out what's the next best fix.
When's he back?
I'm not too sure. I'll just give you a special mention to me Sharks jumper, me Raiders jumper, me Roosters jumper. Just in the back corner, if you can't see it, it's a Dally M medal. Dally M trophy.
Yeah.
This team, we spoke about the improvement over the last few years, but on the weekend, Friday night, Good Friday, the Bulldogs up against the Rabbits. And there was a lot of hype around this one because obviously Cody Walker coming back and he was parting the Trell in the halves. But the Dogs squashed this quite early. Dogs outright winners 32 to South 0.
Spoke about the Dogs, how much they shut down Kalen Ponga a couple of weeks before, and then I sort of touched on that. I thought they were going to put heaps of pressure on Latrell and especially Cody at 7, and they gave him no room to breathe. And I think the Dogs' just all-round performance was huge. Preston, what a player he is. Obviously with that try after half-time, a couple of soft tries through the ruck for South early, which sort of hurt him. Got Dogs a good lead, but I'll tell them I wanted to go into the most impressive thing. You know what? When you win a comp, you got to have the best top 2 defence in the competition, and live ball footy, you have to be better than anyone else. And for the fans, live ball footy is set for set footy. When you keep keeping the ball in an arm wrestle, usually they go for, I don't know, Toddy, what do they normally go for? Maybe 3 minutes, a good one. Maybe in big games, in Origins, they might go for 5-6 minutes. But the idea is to be able to play football while you're still completing in those moments. And on the weekend, the Dogs, from the 30th minute to about 65 minutes, they just had these live ball opportunities. They just kept asking questions. They weren't scoring tries in that period as such until Preston scored. They might have got one other one, but they were just in the game, defending, arm wrestling, and then had 2 restarts late in the game, 2 6 agains. Two kicks that led to restarts, and then Bronson Cherry scores. It was a grand final kind of performance. Like we speak about them blowing teams off the park, but they're defending and suffocating teams. Probably the only question mark on the Dogs was the predictability a little bit for a while there. Have they got enough X factor? But that live ball stuff, I'm telling you, in the next couple of weeks, that'll go with any team, and that's the way they're going to beat Melbourne's and Penrith. In big games, it was really noticeable on the weekend. It was like the perfect sort of performance, big stage, 60,000, 70,000 there, Easter weekend. Scoring tries through the middle, but then like I said, suffocating them in that live ball. It's pretty impressive.
It was impressive. And the whole lead up was impressive. They done the walk with some Bulldogs fans. And obviously, the Bulldogs fans were out in numbers that day. But just even watching before they went on, Stephen Crichton stops him in the tunnel before a certain part of the song comes on, and just the feeling what it would look like was amazing. Because all the players when they were running out yahooing and they were getting behind the whole occasion, but I guess there's a method to the madness for Serraldo. He's preparing them for the big moments. And if they continue the way they are, people are talking about it, they're getting too cocky about finals football. If they continue to win, they're going to play finals football anyway. So he's preparing them for something. And I thought the way they played on the weekend, they just in moments like this, the parts you spoke about then about that they don't always score points on the end of their sets, but they're happy with that. They fall back into formation. The way Sexton's guiding him around his kicking game, I think he's obviously getting better and better, and it shows that this week they're talking about he's extending his contract. So that's obviously another bonus for him. So that will make him more confident as a player that he knows that he's going to be their number 7. But just the addition of Matt Burton again and Kikau, the way they sort of make the team a whole lot stronger. But they strangled the Rabbits to death. That Wayne made some changes. Obviously, Latrell moved to centres and Jack Whiten moved to 6. So he tried that, but late in the game, Cody Walker got taken off and Lewis Dodd comes on. It's a hard initiation at 26-0 down. You got to come on and do so. And it didn't give himself much. Didn't give himself much hope, but he showed a little bit of signs. It'd be interesting to see where Wayne goes this week with Lewis and Cody and Latrell because it showed that the experiment 6 didn't work on this occasion. I thought the week before Latrell had some really good touches, but it just shows that what the Dogs do to you in the halves, they make you work for points, and if you're not up to it, it sort of goes the opposite way, goes pear-shaped.
Was there any news on the blow-up on the sideline with Sutto and the Bulldogs fans? Who was it?
Yeah, Jai Arrow, apparently there was an altercation with the Bulldogs fans. And like you said, the heat of the moment, the occasion, what it was, 60,000, 70,000 fans there, a lot of them Bulldogs fans, down 32-0. Jai Arrow's a bit of a live wire, got a short fuse, and something went on. I think it was dealt with.
Feedback on what happened?
There's a bit of footage on it. There's a little bit of cat and mouse here and there. I think one of the Bulldogs fans was into him and he retaliated the wrong way. And like I said, it's that raw emotion, isn't it? It's hard being out there, and even when you are winning, it's a tough arena. But when you're getting beat by 32 and someone sprays you on the sidelines, his emotions got too high in that part, and yeah, unlucky.
Yeah. Interesting. So it'd be funny. What do you do? Like, if you're a player and some fan swings a punch at you over the sideline, what do you do?
I don't know. I don't know.
Down if you throw one back.
I don't know if I don't actually know the full extent of it. So it's hard to comment on. But I think it was a lot of just words and a heated altercation. You see Sutto in there pushing him like sort of in between it all. But yeah, I think it was dealt with pretty quick. It hasn't been spoken about too much, but there hasn't much come from it. So it means it was a storm in a tea.
I want footage, bruv, a history of the game where there's been a fan punch on with a player.
There's plenty of footage of me goal kicking. I remember when I'd never gotten an altercation, but when I'm first time down, or actually was our first time playing against the Raiders. Was at home. We scored in the corner. I was kicking from the sideline, and the Raiders fans were absolutely giving me the whole barrel, the whole 2 barrels were full of. It was an interesting one. No, it always kicked under pressure. Of course. Moving on to our second game on Friday night, and this was an upset for sure, or was it? Because the performance and the growth over the last few weeks for the Dolphins, 42 beat the Melbourne Storm 22. At one point, the Melbourne Storm winning 16-2. And then from then on, it was just the Dolphins. The Dolphins just ran riot. They scored 40 points after that, just left the Melbourne Storm in their wake. It was a performance of that we'd been hoping for. We'd seen signs of him getting better. At that 16-2 point, I was commentating this game live. I thought the game was done. Thought it was going to be a long night for the Dolphins. But they showed some fight. Ray Stone gets a double. He was in everything. Off 2 flick passes, from one from Cody Nikorima and the other from Avarillo. Herbie Farmworth. But the Dolphins, our boy Cody Katoa, was in everything again. Shows that he's got some different levels in his game, and his running game he's starting to develop. His kicking game was really good. But yeah, it was concerns for the Storm. Obviously, Harry Grant's out and be out for an extended number of weeks, looking at 4 to 6 weeks. And one will affect the Melbourne Storm, but also may affect the Queensland team going into the Origin. What did you think of this one?
Yeah, I love to watch it. This game was special. It was so good to watch. Obviously, we love halves, and to see Isaiah Katoa, for Dolphins, it was 2 wins against the 2 teams from last year's grand final, back to back in 8 days, Melbourne and Penrith. For a young half to stay composed and patient and draw back a pretty steady lead from Melbourne to draw his team back in. He had that kick to Bostock there after Kerr's try, the double pump. Just everything he did was special. And I know the fans are pretty intelligent about watching the way they see their footy, but for a young half to hold his composure, especially after the start of the year when they've sort of been in a form slump, to hold his composure against the Melbourne Storm. It's easy to get flustered in those situations, and just to guide his team back in control. And then, that pass he threw, that double pump was something else. You could hear Andrew Johns and Brad Fittler orgasming in the players box, in the commentary box. I think Todd Carney was. I was going to say something X-rated, but
I was in the back corner.
You were doing some weird shit in that commentary box over that double pump. But mate, honestly, it was.
Well, it's shown the tricks he's got up his sleeve, that once he gets more confident, he's only a young kid still, and he's just getting better and better each week. And was critical of him early on with the way he was playing, but the whole Dolphins team start to improve, and that we're seeing what we've seen in glimpses last year. And like you said, they've beat the 2 teams that were in the grand final last year, while Penrith the week before were depleted, but their performance showed that they're getting better, and it showed again this week. And I want to talk on the importance of big players for teams, and we've seen it twice now. When the Melbourne Storm played against the Dragons, they had Jerome Hughes missing. They get beat by the Dragons, and then on the weekend, Harry Grant out. Shows importance. Is that a concern for Melbourne, that is there a reliance on them 4 players? You see when they're so probably they're 3 in Munster, Hughes and Grant, one of them are out. They've sort of filled the hole of Pappenhausen a few times when he's been out, but it just seems when one of their leaders is out in that sort of core spine, they struggle.
I think it's just the byproduct of injuries in any team. Like your best players, if your best players aren't there, you're not going to usually play as well. I think Melbourne probably do it better than most. Penrith, they're also the last few years where they're one of their best players or one of the pieces of the puzzle of the spine's out, they tend to still play consistent. You see the lower sides, Parramatta, for perfect example. Mitch Moses comes in. They don't only attack better, they defend better. I think the top 4, top 3 sides genuinely can still get by a little bit, but I do agree with you. When one of them's out, the clock just doesn't tick as well. But yeah, I think we see this with every side, and that's why these marquee players are on the big coin and they're playing rep footy, and it's because they leave a hole when they're not there. That's why they're so influential. But I just think it was just so good to see the Dolphins get out of that shit style of footy they were playing the first few weeks. They looked like they had a pole in their ass a bit the first 3 weeks. Like they did. They looked more negative about it. But in hindsight, I can see what Wolfie was doing. I think he was trying to build that long game and defence system in his side. He didn't want him to be erratic, and then maybe they've established that sort of consistent base, and then now they're starting to let the reins go a little bit. Who knows? But it's been a masterstroke because the last few weeks, like I said, they've knocked off the two teams from last year's grand final. They only look like they're going to keep improving. Their centres, Avarilla and Farnworth, are that good. They're so good.
Yeah, and we'll get a gauge on how good they are. They're coming up against the Raiders this weekend down in Canberra on Sunday afternoon, which will be a tough challenge for them. But the improvement over the last few weeks is been noticeable, and that noticeable enough that they've beat the two teams from the grand final last year. So well done to the Dolphins. Our first game on Saturday was at Go Meta Stadium. A game that I also commentated was the Warriors 20 over the Broncos 18. And the game over in Go Meta Stadium was bucketing down rain, wind blowing north-south, a term we speak about when we talk about the Warriors. And in the first half, the Warriors had that in their face. But the Broncos, they kept turning over cheap ball, and it didn't affect the Warriors too much. They went in at halftime 6-all, which was a massive effort from the Warriors to hold on. But the Warriors, they showed that they can continue to stay in the game. I thought the Broncos were very poor again. Ben Hunt had an unforgettable night. Oh, sorry, what's the word? Had a poor night at the office. Yeah, he had a forgettable night, a poor night at the office. Come up with a few errors, a few bad passes, a few bad kicks. And just in the end, actually got hooked. Not hooked from the field, but moved to hooker, and Billy Walters moved to 6.
When's Ezra must be back this week, is he?
Round 10.
Round 10. I was going to say it might have been a little ploy, a move in there. It wasn't going well to get Ezra back. We still got a few weeks, but yeah, it looked windy, as you said. Like watching the game, obviously that 50-metre kick to win the game from Metcalf into the wind. I think it was 240-20s in the game, was there? I think from
240-20s from both teams.
240-20s going into the wind. As you said, I thought it was lackluster from the Broncos. A bit of sort of where they're still at a little bit, in my opinion. Within games and out, we speak about Manly being that type of side, but the Broncos are still in that sort of fourth gear a bit. For me, they're just, Benny Hunt. I've had 100 of them bad games. He had a bit of an off day. He's been a legend. He'll bounce back, but he looked a bit lazy. Some of his passes, Walshy as well. He gets that kick out in Golden Point, which ended up costing them the game, kicking the ball dead. But that was sort of the theme of the night. From all their spine, and then their just efforts were lackluster. But what about that moment, Toddy, off the penalty goal, talking about the wind? When he's gone for the penalty goal and then Staggs catches it and nearly scores. That would have been try of the year, that.
Mate, what
about the kick? It went 50 metres to the left post.
Yeah. Some of the... Mate, it was crazy, the wind. But like we spoke about the wind, and when the game started in commentary, I said it's at least a 12 to 16-point wind. And obviously the Broncos didn't show that, but in the second half, the Warriors did show that the wind helped, and they played the long game. They got to the end of their sets, and he was only tapping at Metcalf some of his kicks, and they were finding just before the try line and making the Broncos come out. But some of the big moments come out of the game. Kate Will takes an intercept, tries to run the length, gets pegged down, and Metcalf takes it around his ankles and scores in the corner. Obviously had an off night until the penalty goal from halfway with his goal kicking. He missed pretty much right in front. 2 kicks before that. So I thought it was a big sort of question mark for me if he should take the kick from halfway, but it come up trumps, and it was one of those things where every kickoff in the first half for both teams that were kicking into the wind struggled to make it to the 20, and poor Walshy into Golden Point kicks in, it goes dead. It was crazy to think that it would go dead, but I was actually daydreaming when it happened, and all of a sudden in the commentary box they erupted about it going dead and had a look at it. It's just the way the rugby league gods work, isn't it? It wasn't their night for the Broncos, and well done to the Warriors again. They just keep finding wins.
Yeah, they're cruising a lot. They're undercover, the Warriors. How much? Where's the biggest improvement for the Warriors? You think, Toddy? If you talk, we talk to Bulldogs, we talk about Melbourne and Penrith. Like they're winning, they're cruising, they're kind of undercover, they're just getting by. But to go with those top 2-3 sides, watching live, what's the difference?
But
Like,
the
what do
difference,
you think that what is it? What do they need? Like, what is it? What X factors? Where's the X factor coming from? Those big games.
well, I think their forward pack, the way they're playing. Jackson Ford filled in at front row for James Fisher Harris on the weekend was enormous. It just shows the effect that James Fisher Harris has had on this group. Some young guys coming off the bench, Halasima in the back row, Bunty Afoa coming on. Just they're doing their job. They've got some big outside backs. I think once they get that sort of cohesion right in their halves and the way they're playing, Tavita Harris was good on the weekend. Metcalf's just slowly developing into a really good half. He's got that composure, but also got a strong running game. They're still missing Roger and Chance. Tua Picky on the weekend was a standout. So I think they need to go that way moving forward. Leave Tua Picky at the back. He's got that little bit more of a flair and ad-lib footy, which the Warriors still need with their go forward. Wade Egan's is controlling really good around 9. The concern always for the Warriors is what happened to them the week before against a full strength Melbourne team. They get lapped by 50. So that's always a concern, but they're sitting at the moment 4th on the ladder. I was skeptical of them after round 1 in Vegas. Sorry, but for me, the Warriors, their improvement is what we speak about north-south footy. They're playing the long game. They're playing to their strengths, which is their forwards at the moment, and they're getting on the back of some good wins. So I thought it was a really good performance for them. For the Broncos, Reece Walsh, which shows his toughness and his eagerness to stay out there. From the first tackle of the game on the weekend, he done his knee, so he's really looking at 4 to 6 weeks. Another implications that will come into concern for the Queensland team, but for the Broncos, they'll have someone else at the back for the next 4 to 6 weeks. So well done to Walshy for sticking at it and getting through the game, and probably a big part of why he didn't play his best game. I thought he tried hard, but when you get a knee injury, but they thought it was a cork. He said it was a cork, so well done to Walshy.
Yeah, it throws Queensland into disarray. Obviously, I think KP's a few legs ahead of him at the moment, though. Anyway, but depth and everything like that comes into play, and injuries. So it's a big out for Broncos and for Queensland potentially. But yeah, I just want to see the Broncos kick into gear. They've got all the talent. I've said it the last couple of years, but they shoot themselves in the foot a lot from game to game. So hopefully they're going to kick into gear next couple of weeks.
Well, that bloke we had an interview last week with, Nathan Cleary, up against the Sydney Roosters. Roosters at Allianz Stadium, Penrith 40, Roosters 12. Are the Panthers back? Is the question on everyone's lips today.
I reckon they're back, Toddy. Just sitting with Nath last week, we kept speaking about. I think everyone knows you don't doubt a champion, and that's Nathan and the Panthers. You don't doubt him, and I don't think anyone was doubting him. We were seeing teething problems in a change of a team, high success for a long time. Like you're gonna have a little bit of a down period for a couple of weeks at one point, or go up and down throughout a year. Like they've done that even in the comps that they've won. Last year they went through periods when they weren't winning every week. People were writing them off, then they showed light, a bit of glimpse of success, and then all of a sudden they timed it perfectly. And like I said, I was sitting with Nath last week. You know that Nath's got all his noughts and crosses ticked. He's got everything mapped out. He knows where he wants to go, and I reckon his old man's 100% in a similar boat. So they'd be calm about where they're at. But I just thought it was clinical. Just shows him and Edwards how good they are together. And there was some really good footy. Roosters edge D, it just keeps letting them down. Like Roosters were in the fight early. There's an opportunity there when Dom Young kicks to Teddy just before half time, and there's a chance of him going in front, and then that was probably the last sort of shining light for the Roosters, and then it was all Penrith after that. Bit of a clinic in that second half. But yeah, both edges from the Roosters is really poor. They look out of whack, which is uncharacteristic, even though the Roosters have lost a few players. Their system in defence usually holds up, but I don't know what it is there. The 3 and 2 man, especially, not only on one edge, Rob Toyer and Dommy Young there, and then even Mark and Toops, they're getting pulled out of position a lot, aren't they?
Yeah, and that comes down to the Penrith attack, the way they played on the weekend. I thought they changed it up a little bit, but also in the big parts of games, luck played a big part. Zayo kicks and hits the upper post pad, and a few lucky bounces for the Penrith team, which was needed. And I'm with you. I think the Panthers are back. I think it shows that they'll have at the back end of the year, like we speak about, that you don't win grand finals in April, but it shows that they're stepping in the right direction. And they'll convincingly winners in the end. I'm with you.
You know what I wanted to talk about, Toddy? I wanted to bring something up about the runaround.
The runaround?
You know the old runaround where a half tips to his back row and then plays up? You see that play that Yoey and Smith played? Yo passed to Smith, return up, I think was when Edwards scored. There was one in the Dolphins game where Bohr did a similar play. It was a bit more. It was a different run around, but remember Thurston used to do a lot of it with Gavin Cooper there. He sort of brought it back. I mean, Sterlo and them were doing it in the 80s heaps, but it's not a play you see that often. But honestly, there's just a couple of nice little ones. Melbourne do it a bit. Melbourne used to do it there with Hoffman and Cronk and Billy Slater all the time. But geez, it was good to watch. I'm sure some of the footy nerds listening that have watched footy for a long time, especially back in the 90s and that, everyone loves a runaround. It was good to see.
Well, traditionally back in the day with a runaround, back in the day when the runaround was first created, it was to create an extra number.
Yeah.
So it creates a number, but when they do it now at speed, it actually creates a number because it holds the defence up. So as soon as that guy gets on the outside, everyone's sitting waiting for the traditional block play. So we play block out the back, which just creates the number, gets them on the outside. But now the way they do it, they either turn it up, so they actually have to go square. So when you go square, the defence has to stop. And then they play inside more so, and then he laps on the outside. So it's a change up of the runaround, but it just creates an extra number for them. And teams that do it well, it comes up nice. They usually score points off. And another one they do, instead of playing inside, that's the quick catch tip on the from a forward to a half going on the out.
That was that Ball one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Back rower.
Yeah.
Blore. Is it Blore or Ball? Blore.
Sean Blore.
Blore. He's a good player, him. Ray Stones looks like he's straight out of the Comancheros or something. He's a tough looking dude, isn't he?
He's a hard man to crack a smile. Gets 2 tries on the weekend and didn't even crack a smile. So well done to Ray Stones. Well, our first game on Easter Sunday, which is a game I went to watch live as a spectator. Took the family along. My little fella loved it. He's a Raiders fan from the weekend. Raiders winning 30-20. To come down from 16-0 down, the Raiders. I thought it was going to be a day out in the park for Easter Sunday for the Titans, up 16-0. They showed some class in different moments, but the Raiders fought it back. But I want to touch on the improvement, not so much the improvement, but the different look of what the Titans showed when they had a steady half playing 7. So Campbell was out on the weekend through a foot injury. I'm not sure how long he'll be out for, but Tommy Weaver got his opportunity to play 7. And he played with composure early on his kicking game and just obviously a different style of footy, way different than what they would play with Campbell there. But it showed what sort of team they would be if they consistently done that. If they could play the long game. Obviously, Canberra fought back and got to 16 all at half time. But it was good to see what Tommy could do, but also the way the Titans were with him with a steady 7. So it's positive signs for when Kieran does come back if he goes into the halves. But I think it's a position that is still a concern for the Titans.
Watching it live, Toddy, what's like the Titans? Obviously, like you said, they got off to a mad start. Everything's going their way. I think it was off Campbell Gillard's error off the dropout when he got bashed off that big carry. There was big contact, and then after that they go back to back tries. But do you sense when you're live the change in momentum? Like what? Because this happens every week to the Titans. Did you sense it coming? Because it was a game there for the taking. They're out in front. You're up by 16. They just can't close it out.
Yeah, it was a concern because, like, sitting there watching it live, I thought the Raiders were down and out. They looked tired because obviously their travel over from the start of the season, Vegas, then they went to Darwin, then now up the Gold Coast. So I thought it was going to be an easy stroll in the park for the Titans on Sunday, but they come up that error, and then Raiders just, it was like a kick in the backside, and they woke up. And just from then on, it was pretty much all Raiders. And that's to their fucking back row and Hudson Young and Matty Nicholson, the way they're playing. Hudson Young is the form player of the comp at the moment. He's so strong. He's in everything. He's just showing why he'll be in the Blues. If not starting, he'll be definitely in that 17 come Origin time.
He's a soldier. That obviously that try got in the first half, and then what about without putting the Titans down, that defence in the second half was so poor. He had about 6 players on him, but it also shows how strong he is when he just barged over from sort of 10 out, carried 5 or 6 guys over the try line. But yeah, I love watching him play. He's becoming one of my favourite players, Hudson Young. Just his work ethic, the way he runs lines, and I love watching him play. And he's Australian back row and Australian squad player now and a starting Origin player potentially. I'd go that far. Obviously, got Angus Crichton there and Liam Martin and a few options, but he wouldn't look out of place starting for the Blues. The way
he was in everything again on the weekend, but I just put all the success for the Raiders down to their forward pack, not just their back rowers. Their whole pack is finding their way, but their outside backs. Jamal Fogarty's kicking game again was the difference. It was interesting over the weekend that the Raiders have now tabled a 2-year offer to Jamal, which is needed. I'd give him whatever he wants to stay, like we spoke about. They're sitting third at the moment, so they're on their way up to look like they'll play finals football. And I still honestly believe if they lose Jamal, they'll go backwards.
I agree with you. He's at a good age too, Jamal. Like, he's not. We spoke about it, I think, last week about investing in any good half because you're going to get reward, but especially when one's only sort of late 20s, early 30s, and he's one of the best players in the comp. And he's been consistent for the last couple of years. But yeah, Canberra top 3, no one would have picked it. That's why you've been happy all year, because Canberra is at the top of the ladder. The Golden Boy is happy, and that's all that matters.
That's right.
Canberra winning and you're happy, I'm happy.
I'd always love to give another 6 or 7 a rap, and Ethan Strange on the weekend was outstanding again. He's a strong.
How good was that try?
Oh, he's outstanding, and that's the thing. That's what you get when you've got someone like Jamal inside. It just frees him up, lets him play his footy. And like I said, I feel if they lose Jamal, they'll lose that. Obviously, they'll lose that combination, but they'll lose that freedom of Ethan to play his style of footy. So well done to the Raiders again on the weekend. And our final game.
Kid, Toddy, who's the other kid that's there behind Jamal?
Ethan Sanders.
Yeah, because him and Ethan Strange, and
they played New South Wales together.
Played New South Wales,
yeah. But we know from New South Wales 19s to playing NRL together is a lot different.
Yes.
And our final.
Saying that, I just want to give the Central Coast Roosters.
Oh, yes.
The major semis. They beat the Sydney Harold Matthews Roosters.
Yes, I've seen that on the weekend.
Coast, yeah, Central Coast, which is some good kids up there. There's a really good half I spoke about it. Carter and Zaylen, little fullback. They got a great combination. But yeah, shout out to them. Huge.
Is that because you spent more time on there? Is that because you spent more time heading up to the Central Coast?
So I've taken credit for it. So well done. Nah, mate, Paul Fronze up there. I went up there probably 2 sessions. Can't take any credit, but I was blessed when I did go up there because of the talent that they got up there. It was a privilege to go to a couple of sessions. And Paul Fronze, the coach, done a huge job. So shout out to Paul Fronze and Steve Deacon as well, who does the runs the system up there. Congratulations, boys.
Our final game of the weekend at McDonald Jones Stadium, Newcastle versus the Sharks. Sharks convincing winners 34-14. Where did you see this one, Mitch? I want you to dive into this one. I think it's a great talking point about the Knights, but also the Sharks. They just keep getting better.
Yeah, the Cronulla Sharks. I think they're doing what we expected, aren't they? They're good. When they're on this time of the year every year, they're really good. Obviously, we're going to be waiting in anticipation for the back end of the year how they handle big moments, but they got the perfect balance this year. Obviously, Fanua Blake got a couple of tries through the Knights. Forwards, Fanua got one. I can't remember who the other one was early, but yeah, pulled the Knights middles apart, and then they're silky all across the park.
Their right side attack's probably the best right side attack in the NRL at the moment.
Yeah, they mix it up too, don't they? Like they mix up their roles as well, don't they? With Nico and Trindle there, they're not always in the same positions. They throw a lot of options there, but the Knights. I want to go on with the Knights. Like the Knights have lost 4 in a row, without being too hard. They're bottom in the ladder for points scored, and last year, even though they made the finals, they finished second last with in attack with scoring points. Like it's a big worry for the Knights. I know they talk about players in and out and lack of like a marquee player. They got Kalen Ponga there. They got Fletcher Sharp, who's as good as anyone at the moment. They got Bradman Best and Dane Gagai out wide. Marzu on the wing was probably their best player. Like they've got so much strike there. I wanted to ask you the question: what is it with Newcastle? I've obviously played there, and to be honest, when I was there as well, we actually got periods with the amount of good players we had. There was periods we struggled in attack. I don't know if it's because they're so front loaded in effort and the Knights focus from a whole club point of view on getting their effort and long game mentality right, or I'd just like to see what your perspective is with it, because the flow with their attack over the last couple of years especially, it's not working for them.
Well, from a viewer or a fan watching footy, I think their predictability is they just set up for plays too much. Then they're continuing to do the same thing, so that they don't play from the long point. They play from a shorter point from 50, and it's the same stuff. Too much reliance on Kalen. When Kalen is on and everyone else is on, they win. But if they're not freeing up footy for Kalen, they have a tough day at the office, and they've changed their halves again. Obviously, Gamble come in for Cogger. Fletcher Sharp was a shining light for them, but I just think they're too predictable. Their setup is too predictable, and they wait for that setup to play footy instead of playing off the back of momentum or that front foot footy. I don't know if that's because they don't have the ability to do that, or they all don't have the ability. There's obviously some players that do. We spoke about Fletcher Sharp. I thought he was a shining light for them, but they seem like everyone's got their measure, that if they do their video right on them, that what play's coming. If they defend it right, they don't have a change up.
What frustrates me sometimes, and obviously they want, there was that one game there against Dolphins, I think it was, when Kalen Ponga shared roles as a sort of half on ball. He was at second receiver, then playing fullback. On the weekend, they went back to that block footy. You got KP as the second receiver, not at the fullback position. It's just too much pressure on him to come up with the perfect pass. Like he's a running player. I love KP as on a 2-pass option for the footy nerds listening. Getting a flat and wide pass, which he can sort of play similar to what he does at fullback, or playing on those big fours down short sides. But when he's on the back of a block play, trying to finesse the ball on the perfect play, it's not good to watch because he's best when he's in space. And I feel like that creates errors and then it becomes really clunky. But the Knights,
Is that down
4
to
in a
the
row,
half to create space for him?
I think so, yeah. It's got to be a half.
Mm.
But
who's the best? Who's their best option there at 7? You reckon?
I think still Cogger for what they need. You know, they need a half that can kick them around. They're obviously, yeah. I think Cogger.
Mm. It's an interesting one because obviously Gamble come in. He broke his nose on the weekend. They fly to New Zealand this week, so a tough task. I'd like to see Jackson Hastings back in there because one thing it shows he's a competitor. He's want to win. He likes to have the ball in his hands. I think it will freeze up, obviously, Kalen a little bit more, and then let Kalen and Fletcher play on the back of Jackson touching the ball so much. But, yeah, it's a concern for the Knights, that's for sure. Obviously, they got their marquee man going there next year in Dylan Brown. But it showed on the weekend that he's more comfortable playing that sort of second receiver role and letting the half do the work was obviously how good he played with Mitchell Moses coming back into it. But yeah, it's not looking good for the Knights, that's for sure.
Who are the Knights got this week?
The Knights have the Warriors.
Yeah, sorry, Knights. I just spoke about them. They're straight on the plane today over to New Zealand. So it'll be a tough afternoon with injuries. Not sure, not knowing who their halves will be with obviously Gamble in doubt. Obviously, if they go back to Cogger, will be the same. I think it'll be the same situation again. I think they need to change a little bit up. Yeah, it'll be interesting. Before we finish the show, I want you to talk about your feuds versus genders topic you want to speak about.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting on the weekend. Obviously, Braith, old teammate of ours, up against Danny Weidler. Isaac Moses versus the whole NRL. It sounds like. But Isaac against Benji. Just about how much it becomes a snake pit rugby league sometimes. And it's probably like that in all walks of life, in all jobs. There's always agendas and power trips and that type of stuff. Obviously, we're more familiar with rugby league, but it becomes nasty, doesn't it, Toddy? And it was just a topic that was worth talking about because when does it become about innocent storytelling and a bit of innocence around creating hype in the game and then it becomes malicious, you know, and really spiteful? And that's what we're seeing at the moment. But
that seems like where the game's run at the moment.
There's a new war going on.
Yeah, there seems like there's a new war every week. If it's not the media and a player, if it's not a club and a player, if it's not a journo and a player or a manager in the club, it just seems like there's always they find something to fester on and it makes the game bitter.
Is it
or is that just the game we have?
Create a lot of this just to create hype? Or do you reckon there's some genuine hatred out there?
Well, there has to be genuine hatred, or not so much genuine hatred. At the end of the day, media and journos have a job to do. And they have to get to the nitty-gritty of the bottom of the detail. So it's speculated and spoken about so much. And then you've got shows, you've got podcasts like us, you've got shows, obviously Braith front and centre of it. You listen to Braith speak about his job. He gets so much information put on his desk each day. And then obviously you've got journos sitting there that obviously let the information come out. And then Braith has to dissect it. So he'd have so much coming at him from the game.
And then managers.
And then managers coming at him. So there's so much speculation with everything. Obviously, player performances, where teams are on the ladder, what's going on inside and outside of the club, players leaving, players coming. And that's the big hype at the moment around. Obviously, Cherry Evans was the first one. They spoke about him leaving. So then we try and find all these different details. One, where he's going. Did he do the right thing? 2 weeks later, Lockie Galvin, he shouldn't be doing that because he's 18. At the end of the day, it all comes back to the same thing. It starts with a small, not so much small, it starts with a player coming out and saying they're leaving or a club coming out, and then it gets nasty because it festers so much that someone wants to throw the last dagger in stab him in the back to get the best information so then they look like the best person. But at the end of the day, all it's doing is making the club and the player look like pieces of shit.
Yeah. Well, it does. When the managers are starting to make it a war about themselves and the coach, poor young players. You feel for this is where you get defensive for Galvin, just from outside looking in. If Isaac Moses has, for example, created this, and I'm not just going, I've got nothing against Isaac, but if it's Isaac Moses versus Benji here, it just puts so much pressure on the young kid. And then, as you said, the media outlets that are behind specific people, Isaac's crew and then Benji's crew, then they start jumping on board, and it gets out of control, doesn't it? But yeah, it just seems this week's just been a wild, chaotic week of feuds, and it's just it's a funny game, rugby league. It's a funny game.
I guess we can speak in this from, I guess not from both sides, because you were at the Roosters, and I guess until the Cooper Cronk information was lumped on your front desk, say, like you were going to be a one club player at the Sydney Roosters, and then all of a sudden the club does not so much the club does the dirty on you, but they go sign Cooper Cronk. So that means you have to change positions or play off the bench. You didn't kick stones, but also you didn't have anyone else out there echoing the noise of the feeling you had. But then when a player does it to a club, like Lockie Galvin or Cherry Evans, it's the worst. They're the worst people in the world, because the club have got all these journos on the back end that support them because they want the information that comes out of that club. And then when players do it, they just have to get left on their own and fend for themselves, where clubs get all this backing, and then obviously their leaders of the club get backing. But the thing for me with the Tigers one is that the leaders or the players that sort of got into Lockie Galvin had made the same decision Lockie Galvin done 18 months before. They knew Jerome Luai knew he was going to the West Tigers 12 months before he was leaving. So there's team first there too. At the end of the day, you can't knock the young kid for going out. Yes, probably poorly managed how it's been dealt with, but he's out there making a decision for himself. And I like that about the young kid. The ramifications from it is probably not what he expected, him playing New South Wales Cup on the weekend. But if that's the go for, at least he's living in his own shoes. He's not just sitting there. Well, I know it was easy for players to sit back and throw stones at people, but at the end of the day, he's made a decision for himself. Same as Dylan Brown made a decision for himself because for him and his family. We've had three incidents. When it suits clubs, it's okay, but when it suits, when it's in the players, wants their best interest of their own heart, they get rocks thrown at them for it. And I think it's a load of shit.
Yeah, mate, it's the way the world is, but yeah, I agree. We see it. We see false things being written sometimes from different powers to be, and we see, as you just said, we see some people getting harshly treated at different times, and then when the roles are reversed, they're first ones to complain that it's happened to them, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's all part of the game. It's all part of, I suppose, the way life is. But it's shit to watch because there's plenty of lies and snaky behaviour that gets around rugby league sometimes. And as ex-players, it's good to have an opinion on it because it's a shit part of the game. We love rugby league, but all this bullshit that sometimes gets thrown around and some lies and mistruths, it's not good to watch. I don't like it.
Very true, Mitch. And like you said, we've got our opinion, and that's why I've got our 6s and 7s. And for our beautiful listeners, like we said, we love your information and we love hearing from you. So that's a wrap from our Round 7 show. But remember, this Wednesday, our fan questions will be back. So if you've got some fans' questions, I want you to write in or phone in and give us a call because we'll be interested to see what you're thinking around all these topics or any topics you want to speak about.
Let's build our tribe, footy nerds. We're taking over. Let's go.